electron or not doesn't make if you're in a group where here is not good enough, you won't get connected through an Ethernet connection to the computer that operates. If there's any problems, you could in principle you know, even the atom problem, you have any computer troubles on the operational computer. And one very remote into. On the server, which you don't have access to, there will also be the actual hardware. And sometimes you need to get in control, which is a known issue, and then it just bug that we know how to deal with. The operating need is this LCC control center, and this one here. But this is where your experimental results. So you see one is for the operation. The third one we'll get in contact with is of course database. Did the second group that you operate a database? No database operation, so you have no this in here. And it knows things like different, so you can look where specimens are, you can look, you can browse the experiments, and that's obviously going to be very, very important. So you can see every single experiment you can see here. So if you go to and refresh. Then, okay, I probably need to change the period as well for which it shows the experiments. Here you can see up to date, which shows all the sort of all the stats. So you can see how many good hits, which is probably the thing you're going to be looking for, which voltage, temperature, and so on. And you have a list of the project active on the click on the upper carousel, lower carousel. It's really the use of you've got two tests. So that's and one sharp test. Most importantly, it gives you the ability to always find your experience. Okay, operation of the lead control center. Right now, we're obviously experiencing a problem, which is patient error between 1500 hertz, or if you it will go down and then will go up. It's all happening through Ethernet connection. Is all system sub, which is a good thing because it most old directly. So you had your gauges on the machine, and the vacuum gauge really on the, and someone logs into your machine. Any problems, and so without the turbo pump status, so it thinks the turbo pump the pressure is in the 10 to the minus, because this is a different subsystem, so the vacuum gauge is a different subsystem, still reporting okay. The server, or you restart the in now, but I think without, yeah, the thing that two pumps yeah, so that some are but yeah, so this is so this here is optional. So some of the machines you might see what it's for is actually to local electrodes can very often be refurbished using a plasma cleaner. Some sort of dirt at the end of an experience, splatter from the and that sometimes turns out to be pointy and emits a hot. When someone says your local electrode only there to clean we need to do reading, otherwise I can't open. It will negatively influence your samples. I think people see like cement type dissolving just. I really hope. Yeah.
So, well, I think it's open LSS server and then go to Turbofarm server in the taskbar at the restart.
Now, because we're remoting into some.
Yeah.
Okay, it's I don't trust you people. You know, better safe than sorry. No, we don't have a heated carousel. It's actually something that I suggested when the machine was arriving. Okay, then. Another try. So. That is very strange. So we have to do a part of communication and then we'll continue on. I think it's better. So we'll just need to wait for 5 minutes. Lead. So you know there might be 10 where you have 1,000. So it needs to fit into one step. One step. But what you definitely would notice is that everything's a connected. 98% of the problems are the problem was as someone. I think it still warrants the whole thing. But it also occasionally gives us problems like that the machine doesn't know that the turbo pumps are operating properly, even though from the vacuum we can see that they are operating properly. So if you're actually interested, we can have a walk over later during the break to where our new field ion microscope is currently being built up, and you will see that everything is a lot more crude. So, for example, the vacuum system, all the vacuum gauges, they don't communicate with anything but the hardware itself, which means the potential for error is very low. The only thing that can happen is that you rip a cable out, or that there's an actual error. But you need to be able to, you need to know the system well enough to actually know what the error could be, because it's not going to have any, it's not going to diagnose itself or try to diagnose itself for you. You know, you can't have anyone remotely. Yeah, so we'll just have to wait for 5 minutes. Waiting is also something that you will do pretty often when you do other experiments, simply because they take a while, and you sometimes trust the machine to be working by itself, but sometimes you don't. Usually, if you do voltage measurements, there's not much that can go wrong. But if you do laser measurements and you've got a tricky sample, and you just manage to get your first good tip in, I don't know, 3 months. Maybe you just sit in front of the machine for the 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours the experiment will take, because you want to make sure that laser is really always properly coupled, that it just randomly lose laser focus, something like that. Things happen, and you really want to get the best data, and you don't want to have spent, for example, the last day like we did in front of the field for nothing. Also, I think it wouldn't help if I just tell Stefan to work faster. It's not really that.
I saw your vacuum not really the one-time session. What I do occasionally over the weekend is just heat it up for 70 degrees or 100 or something.
So if you want to do something like a mini bake, the easiest thing is to switch your cryo off entirely over the weekend.
Yeah, but I sometimes just heat it up to 100 or 70 Kelvin. It's perfect.
But if you do that, what I would recommend is to not pump the main chamber through the ion getter pump. So if the vacuum degrades over time, well, first of all, vacuum gauges have no absolute vacuum reading, so you need to have some sort of reference. So you always should think of your vacuum reading in the main chamber as a relative vacuum reading. If you want an actual accurate vacuum reading, what you need is you need a mass spectrometer, you need a quadrupole mass spectrometer, a residual gas analyzer that would give you an absolute measurement. Apart from that, it's always sort of a relative measurement where you look at what it changes, it doesn't change. Okay, so that ours says 1 times 10 to the minus 10 doesn't necessarily mean that the vacuum is different from another atom probe where it says 8 times 10 to the minus 11 or 7 times 10 to the minus 11. That's just not a thing. It's actually just a screw that we can adjust that will give you whatever vacuum level we want. But if you change it, well, over time, the vacuum level will change because inevitably you will add contamination into the vacuum. Then you can do something like a mini bake. Mini bake just means going to room temperature for a little while, like over the weekend or over a Christmas period, something like that. And the best thing then is just, well, you can raise it to a moderate temperature by using the heater. But the easiest thing is just to switch the entire cryo pump off. Then it goes to room temperature, and all the crap that was in the cryo head just condenses off of the cryo head. Of course, the problem is your ion getter pump is an exhaustive pump, so it's a pump that uses itself up while it pumps, and you might actually go to vacuum levels that are in the minus 9 range, minus 8 range, really, effectively, unless you won't see that in the main chamber because your IGP just pumps everything away, but it will get a little bit warm probably if you put your hands on it. So if you do something like that, the way to go is really to switch off the ion getter pump, open the gate valve to the buffer chamber, and have the turbo pump just pump off all the crap that's in there. And then when you come back over the weekend, you just after the weekend you just close the buffer, close the main gate valve again, and switch on the ion getter pump again. That's the most gentle way of doing it. I mean, a usual ion getter pump has a lifetime of about, I think, 50,000 hours at 10 to the minus 6. So it probably is not going to matter if every couple of weeks or every couple of months you just pump off all the crap using the IGP.
Also, like raise very slowly go into the settings and set the vacuum to, let's say, 1 Kelvin, and then it's very gentle.
Yeah.
And I do this because you can do it overnight and the next day you go to
As a ramping.
5 minutes later you can start. But if you switch on the
That is actually true because all it does is use the heater to heat up the cryo head, really. So you're cooling and heating at the same time, which means if you take the heating away, it's cold pretty quickly. Actually, in my opinion, a machine like that should just have a mini bake button that you can press, in the evening when you leave, and it does the entire cycle by itself. really be the nice way to go. Hasn't been implemented, maybe it will be. Could be. But baking the entire thing should also be automated in the for the, and it's a little bit of a deal to do.
Like
The real baking, yeah. The reason why we actually do the bakes is because we want to be at vacuum relatively fast, but you can do you will always reach vacuum. It's just the question is how long it will take. And with the baking, you know, if you've got a technician over, he wants to keep working and be back in action after a day. So that's why I usually bake only when the engineer is here. We actually did our own bakes in Sydney as well, like every Christmas. There was a Christmas bake. It's not actually that hard to do, but if you're patient enough, you bake them well.
There are some parts that are sensitive to the high temperature.
Yes, of course. You need to take certain parts off. So anything that's metallic can usually stay on. So all of the parts that you will ever bolt onto a UHV system will always contain of a part that can take the baking temperature and some part that can't. Or maybe the entire part can take it in some cases. But it's usually cables and things like that can't take it, and electronics. And if you actually have the baking plant for your system, what it will do is it will strip off everything that can't go to a high temperature, and then put your baking, your heater strips on, and then heat the entire system up. You can actually go and buy heating strips at Vacuum, for example. So in Germany, there's a company called Vacuum that sells heater strips. I'm pretty sure they're not the only ones, but they're the ones that you can just go on the web page and buy heating strips. You can buy them for 150 degrees, 200 degrees, 250 degrees, depending on what bake-out temperature you want to have. Of course, if you've got your own system, that's something you need to do.
I decided instead to get a power generator, so these power fails don't never.
That is actually a very
battery is a bit short.
It's a very good decision. So, uninterruptible power supplies. If you have power failures, occasionally are a big deal, and especially in Sydney, we had a lot of power failures because we were in a pretty old building, and having a good UPS was always very, 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 very important for us. Otherwise, the add-on pump would have just been out of operation like half the time probably if we had these problems. And the power in the UPS lasts for about 45 minutes, which is good for a short power failure. But if something major is happening, and if there's a power outage of 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, then you're in trouble.
Since we had constructions in our building, I didn't trust the electrician engineers.
Yeah. It's a very good thing to have. I mean, the basic UPS just really gets you through minor power failures, like if there's a thunderstorm or something like that. because it also protects for surges. It's actually not that rare an occasion that people had electrical surges in labs from a lightning strike, and it just took the whole lab out. Which sounds good to you, that you get the insurance to pay for an entire host of new instruments. Yeah? Ich höre dich nicht. Verbinden, ja. Ja. Okay. Ja, wir machen alright. Was? Jetzt musst du wieder rein, oder? Was ist das? Ja, ich höre dich. Ja, was ist das Kennwort? Okay, so now we're in. And what you can see now is we might just integrate to fix whatever laser communication error we have. We just need to, okay. I and one went with Is it that one? Okay, Stefan, use 1885. The Park Exchange tab, you've got the cameras, and there you can see Stefan is moving the samples. So the vertical transfer rod just went out, and then you can see the. So this is. You see it? Yeah. Yeah. The Stefan is actually doing the whole thing half blind, but you can see the specimen coming in, and he's locking it on now. And at the back here, you've got a little latch, and that latch actually secures the sample. So you need to twist the sample holder in the other direction. And you can see it latched on now, and then you can pull. It's fine, you can pull, Stefan, and the sample is in. Okay? So it's fairly easy, and it should always go without force. So if that was to happen, it can partially be because it didn't align the transfer rod properly, or what happens very often is if this was moved to the side, so the last person doing the experiment might have had a sample that was a little bit bent and went out to here, or out to here, and they've moved the whole thing a little bit up. It just goes back. It doesn't go lateral, okay? So the most common error when things get stuck is that the stage is up here or somewhere up here and not right in the middle. Just make sure that this thing here is sort of in one line with the local electrode, which you can see here. So the local electrode is this here. The actual local electrode is just this tiny bit in the middle here, okay? So this is what you need to aim for. You've just got a single wire, the aiming is going to be fairly simple. You've got a microchip array. Okay, it's called it's actually, so the ion produces how much, what the and here we've got a cold cathode gauge. So if those two things differ from each other by a constant value, then you should get a little bit nervous, okay? Opposite to your atom probe, or to move fast. But yeah, this so the worse your level is, the higher your noise floor ionized. We could do a voltage experiment. So here you've got various tabs, and you already saw the system schematic. And the Park Exchange. So the Park Exchange is something you need to course align your sample and to move it in and out. And the next thing we're going to look at to the tab that you saw before. And now we're going to go to the next tab, which is the voltage atom probe. I don't know what would be running up right now, and it makes me a little bit nervous, but I guess we're going to see. Okay, that's not good. Currently, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so for now, of course, we need to course align the sample so that the tip is close to the local electrode. and then we can start the experiment. Which you want to add, you set here, I think. Okay. Okay. Y50. Okay. Definitely another day, but. You can set it here, you can obviously type it in as well. And check again. And then there is a heating coil in there that just heats up, that works and heats it up to a certain temperature. Because as you remember from the lecture, always the diode. We're ready to measure some temperature. So when the temperature goes to an equilibrium. So here we've got the two diodes. It always jumps back to the other program whenever you change tabs. I don't know why it does it, but it only does it in the remote connection, so you don't have to worry about it when you're operating. So this is your operations tab for the voltage header probe, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But before we can start, we actually need the cryos to be at temperature. We want it to be at 50K, and then we'll still wait for a little bit. Simply because of thermal drift, because the diode measures the temperature as close to where the experiment is happening as possible, but the rest of your stage might still need a little bit more time to adjust to the new temperature. And what will happen if you don't wait for the cryo to settle in is you will get thermal drift during the experiment, which, by the way, if you do a voltage experiment, you're probably not going to care very much about. But if you do a laser experiment, it will mean that the laser will have to track a lot more. And we actually see the difference between, we have a sample having thermally equilibrated for, say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or 2 days. We will see a lot more difference if you just put it in straight away and after 5 minutes start measuring. So put your sample in, go for a short coffee, go for a short break, come back and do the experiment. Okay, so the next thing, of course, is we do the course alignment. So we move the sample in, which we'll do slowly and carefully because there's a little bit of lag. Caused by the remote connection. Again, if you're working on the machine, you're not going to have to deal with that. You're going to see what's happening live. And if you start to skip damaging things. And with the scroll wheel on the mouse, you can zoom in and out. And when you zoom in and out, it actually automatically adjusts the stage speed along. Okay? And you need to go just far enough so that in the microscope, so these are actually TV cameras that are in there. And when you're doing the fine adjustment, there's some microscopes with like microscope optics. So it's two different types of camera sets really. So you can't really seamlessly move from one to the other. It also means that they have different angles towards the specimen, but that's not actually that important. For you to be able to see the sample. So now you can see the samples. It's nice and sharp and it's shiny. something we haven't seen. We haven't been able to see all that way, able to see all that world in the microscope during the polishing. And that is the error I was talking about with the stage before. Of course, that's the Windows 95 effect. If you remember when Bill Gates was presenting Windows 95, it crashed while he was doing it live on TV. And of course, it's happening to us right now as well. MCL nanodrive error. Failed to connect to nanodrive. So the stage actually has a USB connection with a driver, and that driver occasionally craps out. And what you need to do is just delete the driver and reinstall it. Then we don't do it from here. Yeah.
I think what is this import device back of the red, restart it and take the USB plug from the computer.
That's a solution the technician also told us.
Okay.
Because it happened several times when setting up the machine last year.
I mean, one time I also reinstalled the drive, but sometimes it doesn't.
Most the change in import didn't help. Was that, and solution B is actually reinstalling the driver. I think we've been doing that quite a few times by now. So the good thing about this is not just a video about operating the lead, this is also a video about troubleshooting all sorts of, pretty much anything that you will encounter while you're operating the machine. Okay? We'll come back. Okay, if this work, we probably will just have our break a little bit earlier, fix everything during the break, and then have something properly working when we are back. Okay. So, yeah, since we've run pretty much every single problem we've encountered on the since we've had it installed right now. I think it's best if we take the break 10:15, just till 10. Maybe feel free to roam around here. Anyone that's interested in seeing our microscope can just come with me. And we will just start again at 10 a.m. Okay? And hopefully everything works.